on Denver 7 News at 6, massive flames and smoke in Larimer County as crews work fast to put out a wildfire, prompting mandatory evacuations. We're live with firefighters' progress overnight.
A tribute fit for a queen.
This is the end of an era. I've only known the Queen.
Flowers line the entrances of Buckingham Palace and Balmoral Castle as thousands pay their respects to the monarch who ruled Britain for 70 years.
God save the King.
Local experts join us live to explain the shakeup on the throne as we look ahead to the reign of King Charles and reflect on the Queen's lasting impact.
Oh, she has been just a fixture in all of our lives, not just in the United Kingdom. On the left, you're taking a look at Buckingham Palace and the large crowd gathered there at the gates to pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth II. On your right is a special session of Parliament where they have gathered. We have seen former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Theresa May speak so far, again recognizing the passing of Queen Elizabeth, and then a 10-day mourning period will begin.
And look at this. A rainbow appeared over London as the palace announced the Queen's death yesterday. In fact, in some parts of the city, it looked like a double rainbow. Wow, powerful
Fitting.
image there.
Yeah.
And especially when you see the umbrellas there as well. Raining in the UK this morning in London. Thanks for joining us here. We're getting a nice change in the forecast as well.
Yes, happy Friday to you, and reason to celebrate.
Yes.
Just the temperature alone, you'll feel the difference out there.
I am your favorite person today.
Yeah, we
are.
love you.
Yes.
Good news in the weather world. Things are changing after another record-breaking day. In fact, we broke the record high yesterday before 12 o'clock. Unreal. Well into the 90s, almost near triple-digit heat. Now look at the 24-hour temperature change. Anywhere from 15 to about 20 degrees cooler right now. A cold front rolling in as we speak. So you're going to see some low 50s, even some upper 40s in spots. Castle Rock right now 47, Firestone 51, Golden waking up to 45 degrees. It is a lot cooler up and down the Front Range. And it's going to stay cooler. Take a look at the out-the-door forecast. As you get out this morning, mid-morning, we're going to be near 60 degrees by 10 o'clock, low 60s by early afternoon, and then we're going to hit highs likely in the mid to upper 60s later on today. We have seen a few showers up across parts of northeastern Colorado, and there's going to be a chance for some rain here in town, Jason. I'll show you when, and we'll have a full look at that Super 7 Day for the weekend coming up.
And right now we have 4 trouble spots around Metro Denver, and 3 of them are really significant. This is one of them on that northbound side of I-25 between Colorado Boulevard and University. The left side of the highway is blocked here, heavy coming in from Colorado Boulevard. Let me show you on the map the other 2 areas where we're seeing slow traffic. I-70 and I-25 heading south to 84th. From that camera, you can see that we do have that crash that's blocking up the left side of the highway here. So that left side's blocked up, the express lane and the left lane. Traffic is solid coming in from the Thornton Parkway and beyond. And you can also see some of that slower traffic on I-70 right now from a crash right after Colorado Boulevard. That's backing us up all the way to Vasquez. So heavy stop and go traffic. And then we have this tanker that went off E470 over by Gartrell. And that's over, you can see the tanker right there, brings out a large emergency response, but at least traffic's not backed up too badly on the tollway.
Thank you, Jason. Well, crews are working to contain a fast-moving wildfire in Larimer County this morning. Air Tracker 7 flew over the scene. This is near Ted's Place, about 15 miles north of Fort Collins. You can see the heavy smoke and just how widespread the fire zone is there.
And we can show you where the evacuations are happening. The area in red is under mandatory evacuation status right now. The sheriff's office downgraded the area in yellow, though, to voluntary. Let's bring in Denver 7's Veronica Acosta live near Ted's Place, landmark many people up there know. Veronica, what does it look like out there right now?
You know, it's still a little bit dark, so just like officials, we're waiting for it to lighten up so we can really see whether there's smoke in the area. What I can tell you is that we're feeling those wind gusts come by pretty often. In about 30 minutes or so, we also spoke to a Larimer County official who told us that overnight the fire did die down quite a bit, which is good news for them. He said that the humidity, the cooler temperatures that we're feeling this morning, they were definitely helping them, and they, again, are just waiting to see what is left up there. So take a look at this video. This is from Air Tracker Sector 7. This just goes to show how wide that fire burned. You see the flames there. You also see the smoke in that video. We know that as of last night, 600 acres burned. 600 homes were still under that mandatory evacuation. And again, as of last night, no containment. Now, we know multiple agencies were assigned to work that fire. Of course, they wanted so badly to be able to get it under control. A helicopter and a tanker, they also helped with firefighting efforts. We know at some point electricity went out, but as of this morning, we know that Poudre Valley REA, they have been able to get that back on for people, and they say the structure is safe. So that is, again, really good news. And as soon as the light comes up, we'll let you know what we can see out here. We're live in Larimer County. I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Yeah, much better conditions than yesterday. Thank you, Veronica. We'll keep you updated on the latest evacuation orders and the progress of firefighters on the air and on Denver7.com, as well as the Denver 7 Plus app on streaming. Taking a live look now at Buckingham Palace. The United Kingdom is in the midst of a national period of mourning after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Yeah. She was 96 years old. They are 7 hours ahead of us there in London today, and King Charles will make a statement a little later at 11 our time.
Yeah, took the throne at 25 years old. Front pages on all the major British newspapers are issuing special editions this morning dedicated to her life. Her death brings an end to one of the longest leadership tenures in world history. And to give you some context, until Thursday, at least 9 out of every 10 living human beings have ever known a British monarch other than her. And with that in mind, we want to help you understand what's next to honor her and her son's ascension to the throne now. Queen Elizabeth's funeral will be held 10 days after her death at Westminster Abbey. It is the same place where she married Prince Philip back in 1947 and where her coronation ceremony was held in 1953. The Queen is then expected to be laid to rest in a private burial in St. George's Chapel on the grounds of Windsor Castle, where she spent many of her final years. She will be buried next to her husband Philip. With the death of the Queen, her eldest son will be known as King Charles III. And Nicole, this is the first time that we've seen a change on the throne in more than 70 years.
That's right. I mean, most of us were not alive for the Queen's coronation in 1953. It's very likely we will never see another reign that long again, certainly not in most of our lifetimes. We're going to hear from the new king at 11 a.m. our time. His address is part of the protocol that the royal family had planned years in advance. In fact, this was dubbed Operation London Bridge, the transition here. King Charles released a statement as he paid tribute to his mother yesterday, saying, "We mourn profoundly the passing of a cherished sovereign and a much-loved mother. I know her loss will be deeply felt throughout the country, the realms, the Commonwealth, and by countless people around the world." Today, the Accession Council, led by government figures, is expected to meet at St. James Palace in London, where they will formally proclaim Charles the new sovereign. But as for his coronation, it will likely be several months from now. For some context there, the Queen's coronation, remember, was 1953. We said that was over a year after her father's death. Charles and his wife Camilla will be crowned side by side. She will be known as the Queen Consort. Queen Elizabeth made the request for that title back in February. It was the first time she publicly addressed her daughter-in-law's role in the future monarchy. And everyone is talking about this today. I mean, around the world, such an inspirational figure. So we want to give you more insight on the Queen's extraordinary reign and what we can expect from the monarchy in the future.
Dr. Peter Harris is with Colorado State University. He is an expert on the monarchy and succession. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Harris. And obviously, we want to start with Queen Elizabeth and a record 70 plus years on the throne. How do you even begin to describe her legacy and her time in the reign?
Thanks for having me this morning. So I'm from England. I moved to the US 12 years ago. So I'm watching this as a new US citizen, but also as someone who comes from the UK. Obviously, she was this national symbol for the UK, very well liked. She meant a lot to a lot of people. By all accounts, kind of executed the role of monarch, very well. Very few missteps throughout her 70-year reign. I do have to say, though, as now an American looking at this from across the Atlantic, this is going to be taboo to say for the next few weeks and maybe even longer. But at some point, I think the UK has to kind of zoom out and have a conversation with itself about, does this institution of monarchy keep going for much longer? You know, for 70 years, the person and the institution were basically synonymous, and to be a monarchist was to be in favor of Queen Elizabeth. Now we have Charles on the throne, who's less popular, who I think is less easy to be deferential to. And at some point, this institution of monarchy probably needs to be rethought.
It's so interesting because we are seeing an evolution with the younger members of the family, of course, Harry, William. Charles now is already in his 70s, so he won't reign for as long. What can we expect here, do you think, for the next years?
You know, the whole point of the institution of monarchy, and if you were going to defend it, you would say that what it brings you is stability and continuity. So we shouldn't really expect many changes. And if there are changes, then that's a problem, you know, and that needs to be looked at. The one thing about Charles that he has hanging over him that's somewhat serious is that he has a history of interfering in government policy, at least trying to influence legislation. It's completely inappropriate for a monarch to do that in a constitutional monarchy. And it's pretty inappropriate for the heir to the throne, which Charles was up until yesterday, to do that as well, for an unelected head of state or heir to the throne to influence policy. I don't know how that will kind of hang over him or cast a shadow over his reign, but people should be certainly looking at that. I mean, I've heard it commented in the newspapers that, well, you know, Charles is this great advocate of green politics and the environment. And I think even people who agree with, you know, tough environmental policies and green policies should think twice about whether or not they want an unelected head of state to be pushing those kind of policies.
Right. Dr. Harris, is there a moment from Queen Elizabeth's reign? Obviously, she's been through so much, not only with the country, but with the family over the last decades. Is there a moment that you point to that helps define her time on the throne?
Honestly, I think everyone will have their own moment. You know, her reign spans such a varied time in British history, from the kind of the post-war era, right through the 60s, up until, you know, the modern time, the modern day. I don't think there's going to be one moment that really sums that up for the country. For me, what I remember, I mean, I remember as a kid when Windsor Castle was on fire, and the, you know, that really seemed to hit the Queen pretty hard, pretty personally. But again, I mean, I have to say, it's gonna be pretty taboo to say these kind of things next few weeks. I remember thinking as a working class kid in Northern England, why does this person have so many castles?
Yeah.
Who one of them burnt down, but again, at some point, you know, I think it's great as an institution to have this kind of connection with history, but it's also great to come into the 21st century. And I think at some point, I have nothing bad to say about Queen Elizabeth. You know, as a person, as an individual, she did her role remarkably well. But as an institution, we really need to don't get carried away with this, and maybe zoom out and cast a bit of a critical light on the institution of monarchy.
Well, no doubt a person and a family that has definitely fascinated us for decades. Thank you so much, Dr. Harris, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Take care.
So as we are honoring Queen Elizabeth's legacy today, we also want to celebrate her passions, including one that stood the test of time.
I think this is where I really love seeing the Queen in those moments where she sort of looks like a normal woman.
Yeah.
Loved horses.
Got a sense of humor.
Yeah, had a sense of humor, loved racing, and loved a very specific breed of dog, Danny.
Yeah, I think we all know where this is going, but maybe not everyone knows just how far Queen Elizabeth's love of the Corgi dog breed goes. I mean, there are pictures of her with corgis going back to when she was 10, which would be 1936. as in before World War II, before Harry Truman was even vice president. Queen Elizabeth had already discovered the greatest footstool on earth. Look how cute they're going first class right there. But she just had an eye for talent. She knew this was going to be the breed of the future. And then on her 18th birthday, she received Susan, who would become the ancestral leader of the more than 30 corgis that Her Majesty would go on to breed. Take a look at this timeline from the BBC. Oh, and we just keep scrolling. We just keep on scrolling. She clearly really loved Susan specifically because almost all of them descended from her. And I was crunching the numbers. In Colorado, that many corgis would cost you as much as the Broncos. Pretty much. I mean, corgis are so expensive now. Everybody just loves them, right?
Wow.
She knew. And actually, Princess Diana used to call them the, quote, moving carpets because she wouldn't go anywhere without her corgis.
Funny.
But can you blame her? I mean, they are like the cutest dogs.
Yeah.
I read she had a plan in her will for who's going to get the horses
Is
and,
that
the,
right?
and the corgis.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
And she stopped breeding them, I think, in 2012 because she didn't want any of them to outlive her. She didn't want them to be lonely without her.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Interesting.
Well, thank you, Danny. We will continue to follow the ceremonies from overseas, from right here as well. There are events happening in Denver today we're going to talk about on our website, denver7.com. Broncos country, the anticipation is overwhelming, waiting for Russell Wilson to make his debut. But first, he's making sure the naysayers know he's ready to win against his old team.
Also, move over milk. Kellogg's wants you to put a different liquid in your cereal.